Welcome everyone. I'm now happy to say that this one goes to 11. I know what you watched last week. Episode 11.
What did we watch?
Yeah, we watched some interesting ones. I'll start.
Interesting could mean a whole host of things.
Well,
doesn't it?
exactly. And they are different, that's why. So we're starting with American Psycho 2.
Yep.
Then I believe we watched Cruel Summer next, which I had wiped from my memory, but unfortunately had to remember for this
But now it's
conversation.
back.
It's back with a vengeance. And finally we watched Hatchet.
Yes.
Yeah,
For the first time.
for the first time for both of us, right?
Yeah, I never picked it up when it came out. So, from least favourite to favourite.
There's not even a question about last place. It was
What?
laughably, not even laughably bad. It was just abysmal. I'm sorry to say, it was Cruel Summer. Then swiftly moving on, it was more difficult for me to decide between these two, but I would put American Psycho 2 in the silver and gold goes to Hatchet.
Da-da-da-dun.
I was very pleasantly surprised.
My one goes Cruel Summer in last place, Hatchet number 2, and American Psycho 2 at number 1.
Okay, strange. I'll be interested to hear why you think that.
So we're going to start off with number 3.
Of course.
The double number 3 ranked, Cruel Summer.
I just can't even believe. We've seen some things on streaming quite recently that we were just questioning who is funding this, who's approved this, who's worked on this. I mean, generally, it's the same person who's done every single job once you get the credits up, and they love to give themselves every single credit they possibly can. But the level of this, I barely even call this a horror movie.
Did we find out how the funds for this movie was raised?
No. And it wasn't a huge budget, but it's still...
It was 50 grand.
Yeah, which is like, that's still come from somewhere.
Yeah, and that's a hefty lump of change.
Yeah. It's not like funding your own short films.
So somehow this movie called 50 grand, and they managed to make it look like 50p.
I honestly was thinking, as someone who was born in the mid-90s and made a lot of sort of home videos growing up, well, yeah, they honestly were of a level. And this is when video just came out to the general populace, and my mum was just kind of faffing about with the camera whilst my sister and I danced and did little drama pieces. But I would rather watch that than ever have to see Cruel Summer again.
Yeah, and that home video stuff was pretty shocking, I've got to say. I've had to sit through some of it. Never again. So as you mentioned, the director of this has listed himself in several roles, including director, writer, editor, casting, actor, and music department.
Was that it?
That's the ones that I've listed. Whether I gave up halfway through, I don't remember. But I have it on good authority that he was also the head caterer.
Oh, goodness me. Okay, yeah.
And if his cooking was as good as his directing, then I imagine it would have given everyone syphilis. And I know you can't contract syphilis through foodstuffs, but this would have been the first case of such.
Oh,
if he actually
God.
was the caterer. I wasn't being serious. I was just
Okay.
making a point on him listing himself in almost every credit.
Right. Yeah. I don't know why you do that. I completely understand why one person can have multiple roles and jobs for many reasons.
Maybe he could blame it on his assistant, but I imagine he was probably his own assistant after looking at the credits.
No, I just don't understand. Can't you just sort of give yourself a bracket title and go on from there? Do you have to list every single one with just your name under it? It's really weird.
Well, I find it quite impressive, actually.
Of course you did.
Quite
You loved it
impressive,
so
you know,
much, that film.
how bad you can be at all of these things. I'm not sure what was worse, his musical input,
Musical
his
input.
acting, or the story/script/direction.
Or the filming or the editing or...
Because I noticed, you know, at some point during the movie, quite early on, when the killer was faced with one of his victims. And I just said to you, look how the killer's standing. I said, he has absolutely no presence. He has no posture. He's just kind of standing like he's, I don't know, waiting for a bus or something. That was the first time it clicked in my head to check out how much this movie had cost and things like this, because it was pretty obvious from early on that there wasn't much professionalism going on here in any facet of movie making.
Yeah.
We've barely even scratched the surface. So I've mentioned that he was a serial killer.
Yeah.
So he's cast himself as a serial killer. And you would have thought that if you're making what is called or billed as an homage to 80s style camp away movies.
Yeah.
With the serial killer, that the first thing you would do is hire a guy that can move really well as a serial killer, as an imposing figure, as a presence. And this is the complete opposite of that. It's beyond comical. It's not even funny because it's so bad that it's beyond even being funny. You're just kind of like rolling your eyes at it.
Funnily enough.
And the effects, like when someone's getting scalped, and then the camera goes in close, and there's just one light, see-through drizzle of reddish/clear blood coming down the face.
Yeah. So as I was just
50
saying,
grand, and you can't even get liquid blood.
Yeah.
Or something to resemble it.
Absolutely appalling.
What I did notice in this movie is there is a brand new BMW, and what I'm thinking is the director's listed himself as everything. Bit of an egotist. I reckon he just spent like $49,999 on the car and left himself $1 over and just got his mates round or whoever. How has he roped these people in to make this movie?
Well, it's the
What
arts.
wrote them
People
in?
will do a lot.
Did we list him as a producer, as in someone who got this together, or executive producer?
I don't know.
Let me go back.
You were the credits guy. But I'm going to take this opportunity to say what I've been trying to get in for a few minutes now, which is that, funnily enough, the whole posture of that guy, the serial killer, was to me actually the most off-putting part, because there's something to be said about those, staples of horror, Kane Hodder, or even just the younger guys, like in Scream. Everyone who plays Ghostface has the right physicality to be wearing that costume, whereas this was like, you couldn't think that this guy'd gotten off his couch.
The guy just wanted to fill a childhood dream and portray a serial killer, and that's what he's done here. Money. It could just be 50 grand of his own money. That might be his life savings he put on this, because we've also found out there's A Cruel Summer 2, and the production budget dropped from 50,000 to 10,000.
When does that happen generally with these kinds of indie films? You usually end up getting more for your second, I would have thought. Maybe I'm just thinking of breakouts like Terrifier, but...
So to say, this guy's done everything, including the music, and he's had 50 grand to do this, and there was a whole cast and whole crew, everything you need to make a movie. 50 grand as well, which might not make, a full amazing movie, but it's enough to at least make some really good scenes somewhere along the line. Be good at something, excel at something. Because I'd never like to, take shots at something that only costs 50 grand. But at some point, if this has been crowdfunded, for instance, it's going to give crowdfunding a bad name because people aren't taking it seriously. And I don't mean don't make silly movies or don't make fun movies, but this is just inept. It's completely inept. And I hope this wasn't crowdfunding, because if it was, it just gives crowdfunding a bad name. And we're probably looking down the line that we're going to have to do some crowdfunding. And we don't want to be associated with things like this, because most people out there are pretty professional and take it seriously. This was just not taken seriously. I don't know if you just had 50 grand to throw away, because that's what it looks like.
Terrible. Do not bother watching this film. There is nothing entertaining about it.
This guy should not be allowed near a musical instrument again, or whatever he used to make these sounds, or near a camera. If he wants to stay in the arts, maybe he could do the thing like a human traffic cone in a free play for the public. And in that way he can stay in the arts, but he hasn't really got to bother anybody.
Anyway, let's leave that pile of steaming garbage and move on to second place.
That gives piles of steaming garbage a bad name, Karen.
Let's still move on to second place. But who's second place? Mine or yours?
It's up to you. I should let people know that Cruel Summer 4 is due for post-production beginnings at the end of 2024, beginning of 2025, and they haven't. There's no sign of number 3. So I just skipped number 3 and have gone straight to number 4 because it's just so good.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's one way to go. I suppose that's definitely different.
So number 2.
Yeah, I think we'll go with mine.
Mm-hmm.
Which was American Psycho 2.
AP2.
I can't even really believe that it's actually got that title.
Absolutely. The title hurts the movie.
Yeah,
It seems like, again, another script that has been written is in existence, and they've just kind of put a fake Patrick Bateman in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
And just written him in a small way, and then just put, now we can call it American Psycho 2 so we can sell it to the public.
I think the weirdest thing about it was with Mila Kunis playing the lead role of the psychopath.
Yeah.
She, like, the whole thing got a kind of Disney vibe, like a teen girls movie. There's just, I don't dislike Mila Kunis, but there's nothing about her or her performance that comes across as menacing, or it's just like I said, it's a sort of...
I'm not sure it was supposed to, because like you said, as you mentioned, it's come across as like a teen, and it very much was like in the vein of a teen slasher, a B-movie teen slasher from the 90s. It reminded me, the style of it reminded me a lot of Urban Legend 2. And I won't go into that movie, but just the style of it, the way that it looked, everything, the kind of performances, things like this.
To me, it was still more akin to Princess Diaries than Urban Legend 2.
I absolutely see that too. I mean, what I really... Because like I said, I've put it at number 1.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and what I loved about it was just that it had a voiceover like Mean Girls or something, like you were saying. So it was so not an American Psycho movie, but I enjoyed all these little dumb tropes. It had a very teen soundtrack as well, kind of. It had like this, let's call it chick rock, and I absolutely loved it. I think this movie came out in early 2000s. I can't remember, let's just say 02, maybe a bit later, quite a while after the first one. But it had nothing to do with the first one. So even with the soundtrack and everything like that, obviously there are big musical moments in the original American Psycho. But in this one, it was just used for a soundtrack, and it reminded me, of like an American Pie style compilation soundtrack.
It's definitely a completely different kind of movie.
And the acting is kind of in that vein. The major kill in the movie. Remember what it is?
No.
Death by condom. Mila Kunis strangles a guy who she brings back to her bedroom with a condom. She chokes him out with a condom. Condom.
Yeah, let's say that one more time.
You got me thinking. Condoms are pretty durable.
Am I going to have to draw a condom?
What other ways could they have killed someone with a condom? And I was thinking, stuff them all down someone's throat, not used, obviously. That would be absolutely disgusting.
Get a really large one that you can pull over their face and like...
Yeah, like a bag over the face.
Them.
Yeah, it's asphyxiation by condom.
Asphyxiation.
Asphyxiation.
Yeah, okay.
By rubber.
And now, don't get me wrong, this movie, I enjoyed watching it.
You haven't provided an answer.
What?
Other ways that you can die by condom.
Well, I provided the asphyxiation one.
Oh, yeah.
I have provided an answer. Don't accuse me of things.
I got so caught up in just discussing condom death that I forgot it was even an answer.
It's not even titty distracting you this time. It's just condoms.
When Mila Kunis strangles this guy with a condom, after he's passed out, I'm pretty sure she says, ribbed for her pleasure. Yeah,
she definitely has a one-liner that I was like, wow, they went there. So what I was going to say was, I did enjoy it, but I think I was so baffled and thrown off trying to keep up with how different it was to what I would expect with that kind of title, that I still put it as number 2. It wasn't like I went in with no idea beforehand, so it kind of ruined a bit of the enjoyment. But I would watch it again.
I wasn't ready for Professor Shatner.
He was brilliant.
The one and only William Shatner.
He's always going to be great, isn't he?
He's a whole other reason why it goes number 1. I'm not a Trekkie or anything like that. I don't like him through Star Trek.
I just like him.
I just like William Shatner.
Yeah.
Mostly his music. If you haven't checked out his musical endeavours, his recent album... No, he's not a recent album, but it's just called Nimoy Shatner. So you get Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner on record singing random songs like about Bilbo Baggins and things.
Yeah, and if
it's not to be
there are
missed.
2 things in this world that Jonathan is knowledgeable about, it's horror movies and music. So I guess take it from him.
Yeah, I love that my first recommendation of music on this is William Shatner Nimoy, 2 for the price of 1. You haven't lived until you've heard the Bilbo Baggins song by William Shatner. He definitely sounds drunk.
Oh gosh. Anyway, let's get back to the movie talk. I don't even know where we were. I got so sidetracked by Shatner.
Do you remember the inept cop duo in this film?
Vaguely, yeah. I mean, everyone was kind of inept. It was
At the end, the good professor guy from the movie, he's in the cop car because they've got to chase after Mila Kunis, and one of the inept cops in the back of the car says to the guy driving it, "Hey, you're doing 35 in a 60. No, you're doing 60 in a 35-mile-an-hour zone," and they just kind of look at each other, and then he goes silent, and he just starts writing him out a ticket. It's much funnier on screen than explained. Yeah. It's just the way that it was done. And again, this movie has nothing to do with American Psycho. Absolutely zilch to do it.
It's basically the antithesis.
But in the very beginning of this movie, it opens with Mila Kunis being younger, her character being younger. And it's baby Mila Kunis who ends up taking out the Patrick Bateman character from the first one.
That's how they tied it in. But apart
so
from that,
baby Mila Kunis killed Patrick Bateman.
Nothing else about this is like...
And after that, she decided to be a killer as well. But more than that, she wanted to be a teacher's assistant, and that's what drives her to murdering rage, is that she doesn't get made teaching assistant. Even though
stands in her way.
It's her junior year. We all know you can't make teacher assistant because it's at least your sophomore year. The secretary said so.
Yeah, but she's a strong, independent woman who can pave the way and won't stop at anything.
She can
to get
kill
what
her
she
way
wants.
through. So number 1 for me, definitely, I've never seen Death by Condom before. William Shatner as a professor who also gets... He's a sleazy professor, obviously, and all the ladies are after him at his party because they all want to be teacher's assistant that year. So he's telling all these jokes about horror movies and things. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Long live Shatner.
Is that all you had for that one? Moving on to my number 1, your number 2, Hatchet.
Hatchet, yes.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool movie.
I wasn't sure. So when you're scrolling on Amazon streaming, it sometimes gives you like a little preview snippet.
Yeah.
And we'd seen that a couple of times before we actually went and watched it. And for some reason, I had in my mind that Hatchet was just supposed to be like a serious movie. And the little snippet thing, I was like, this just doesn't look very good, despite the fact of who's in it. But then once we watched that scene, I absolutely loved it. I loved it.
Yeah, I was well aware that this had a more comedic vibe.
I was taken by surprise. But
so I half knew what to expect, but there were definitely good bits in it.
I don't know, with a name like Hatchet, I'm just expecting straight up like murder and gore. So it was, yeah.
The scene that you're talking about, it's shot in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And Dion Richmond, the actor.
Yeah.
And I don't know his name, but the guy from Dodgeball, who plays the really awkward guy who has a crush on the unibrow girl. So I'll call him Dodgeball Guy. Dion Richmond and Dodgeball Guy walking down New Orleans, and they knock on like a door of is it
for like a tour?
For a tour, yeah.
Like a haunted ghost tour or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the one and only Tony Todd, aka Candyman, opens the door to them.
And what an entrance he makes of that tiny movement! My God.
His Candyman's Tony Todd's whole performance in that movie, so he only has that scene, and it's so whacked out of nowhere. And it's just one of those things where you're behind the camera and you've got Tony Todd just delivering this crazy scene and you just let it go.
Yeah.
Like you go with it. And it's particularly the end of his sequence that really made me laugh out loud. The thing that he says last of all, which is just so out of nowhere.
His whole thing just made me so excited for the rest of the movie because I was glad to see him embrace this kind of role because we've seen him in like small things apart from Candyman, obviously.
Final Destination.
But I just don't think he's had as much freedom because they're not such comedic movies. So it was really fun to see him sink his teeth into this short.
Yeah, as soon as I saw that, I knew I was going to enjoy it. And even before that, it opens with Robert Englund in a boat in the swamp, almost. Swamp
Yeah,
Lake.
it's the Bayou.
Yeah, Robert Englund, who's obviously
Bayou.
Freddy Krueger. Don't need to mention it. So nice opening to see him because I enjoy him in other things like Urban Legend, where he plays I think he plays the dean of the school, and he's in Wishmaster, where he plays like an antiques collector. He's absolutely fantastic in that. I love that movie too. So I'm always happy to see Robert Englund out of the Freddie wake up as well as into it. But he gets to say some, let's call it these days, out of date stuff. He's saying some pretty out of date stuff at the beginning when he's berating his mate in the boat. So I'll leave it at that. So this
Son.
movie is supposed to be like was it his son?
I think it was his son.
Yeah, even
Funny
worse
thought,
then.
carry on.
So this movie is just about where they're on the way to, or even on the way. No, they're just partying in New Orleans, aren't they?
They're partying,
Yeah.
and
To the point where
one guy's just been broken up with, and he can't get this breakup out of his mind. So rather than partying, he wants to go and distract
Dodgeball guy.
himself with a haunted bayou tour. Or
to
something.
which Dion
Boat
Richmond says to him, "You want to leave all this Tilly and go look at some lake?" So this movie definitely benefited from having an actor like Dion Richmond and the guy from Dodgeball as well, who's really good in Dodgeball and he's good in this. But Dion Richmond in particular was stealing a lot of scenes and stuff. And I only recall seeing him in two other things, being Not Another Teen Movie, where I believe his character is just called like the token black guy, and he knocks it out of the park. And he's also in Scream 3. He plays one of the actors who's in the Stab movies.
Right. Oh, is that him? Okay.
Yeah, he's got some really probably ad-lib lines that he's done. But he's just a really enjoyable guy to watch.
Well, he was obviously the sort of main comedic break, because the dodgeball guy, as we
Yeah, he plays it straight.
has to play it straight because of the situation, and that's why the other things are so funny, I guess. But he got me to crack up so hard at one point when dodgeball guy is being coerced by Dion Richmond, into trying to chat up the girl he sat next to on the tour bus, and he's doing his best, which is an abysmal job, and he's not getting anywhere.
Something that he says in his chat at the beginning really makes me laugh. Dodgeball guy, what he
go
says
on.
to the girl. And I'm not going to reveal it, I'll just let everyone find it out, because again, it won't be too funny, but
Sorry, guys.
He just makes me laugh.
So he's trying to chat with this girl really badly, and it is funny just in itself what he's saying, but then it does a cutaway shot to Dion Richmond's face.
Yeah, his reaction to his chatting up skills.
It's comedy gold. No words, no movement, just a face of pure watching your mate just completely fail. Oh, it was so good.
Full head first.
Yeah.
In the game department. Away from this, we also had, apart from all the comedy, in which there is just loads of comedy.
Yeah.
It's just made that way intentionally, big time. But you get kind of excessive / comedic gore.
Yeah.
And Victor Crowley, who is the bad guy in this, the guy who lives in the woods, is played by the one and only Kane Hodder, who's obviously super famous for playing Jason in many Friday the 13th movies.
And he has great posture for that kind of role.
Yeah. He's the guy you want if you're making a low budget killer in the wood style movie. And they have Victor Crowley produce some pretty cool death scenes.
Yeah.
Do you recall any?
I recall them being very gory. For some reason, the one that sticks out, even though I'm pretty sure I was more pleasantly disgusted by later kills, was the very first one that comes about when there's an elderly couple and the guy is already injured. I think he was attacked by a crocodile, which again brings one of my favourite subgenres into it. There was the whole crocodiles in the bayou thing.
Did Lake Placid bring about the crocodile horror fascination?
I don't know what it is. I've always found those water creatures, I think sharks and crocodiles really are personal kind of fears, so when they play on that, I guess, it's hard to do it really badly, even though we've seen a few examples.
This swamp setting was a good setting for a horror movie, that you had things like alligators as well.
I love
the nutty
the
killer.
New Orleans bayou setting.
Yeah.
In fact, my favourite Scooby-Doo movie ever is also set New Orleans bayou, Zombie Island.
Yeah, it's just a classic place to film a
great
movie, New Orleans, isn't it?
Absolutely. There's an elderly couple. The guy is injured, and the wife even though they've heard the story about Victor Crowley and how dangerous it could be, the wife still sees like a path to get help for her husband, and they start walking towards this building, and lo and behold, Victor Crowley appears, comes out, and I think he kills the husband first, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And then after a bit of sort of shocked reaction, the wife decides it's time to run away, and of course also gets killed.
I remember towards the end, he's ripping someone's face apart. He twists.
Oh, yeah.
He twists a guy's neck to decapitation, rips his head off, and the best thing is when he's got the dodgeball guy cornered against a tree, and off screen, Victor Crowley picks up the girl's head who's just chopped in half, throws his head at the dodgeball guy, followed by the torso quickly thereafter.
Yeah.
That was a funny comical moment. And you also get Victor Crowley dribbling some murky liquid into some guy's mouth, and he also rips off Dion Richmond's arms.
Yeah, I think a lot of people die in this, which is good for the genre, I think, and it kept it constantly entertaining. Well, there were less survivors than I would have thought there could be, but...
No, almost everybody must die. We also had the guy that I recognised from 2.5 Men was in this. He plays a Christmas tree salesman in one of them, and he plays a hospital patient who has his thumb cut off in another, when Alan is sitting next to him.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So he's another kind of
comedy
guy that was in this.
Part of the group that are on this
tour.
trip is this guy who turns out to be a sham porn producer or something, and he's got these two girls with him, and they keep sort of flashing their tits throughout.
Yep.
How could I forget? I'm surprised you haven't mentioned it sooner, Johnny.
Well, I just thought I'll get you there.
Okay, let me bring it up this time.
Hatchet has all of these kind of classical elements of old school slasher movies, and it does it in a way where it's completely aware of what it's doing, which that's what makes it enjoyable for me.
I just realised that subplot thing reminded me of another of my classic favourite movies, Dead Calm, because there's also a guy who's got a camera on
one
girls,
and only
like
Billy Zane,
fake porn maker or whatever. But anyway, straight back to Hatchet. Just had to bring that up. So what were you saying?
I was still locked in the 2.5 Men guy.
Oh, okay.
But wasn't also the guy who plays, like, what's his name, Champ Kind in Anchorman, was he in this, or am I imagining the bald guy with the sideburn?
No, I think you're imagining that now. Probably wouldn't have been a miss.
No, because I've written down most people are in this, but for some reason, maybe it's the guy who just resembles him, I don't know. We'll probably cut this bit out, I'm just waffling now. Yeah, and this porn guy is in his company called the Bayou Beavers.
Was that his real one or his fake one?
Well, I guess it's all fake. So
no, because they find his actual one. He's been killed. They find his actual business card, which has got nothing to do with porn. It's like just something completely unrelated, and he's got a fake name as well and everything. They're like, that bastard. But it's fine. They die anyway. So
everybody dies, pretty much. So you're just waiting for people to get off in this movie.
I feel like it's gotten really dark since we started.
It has gotten dark. I was noticing this about 30 seconds ago, so I didn't say anything. It looks very ominous outside, and especially ominous in here now. Maybe it's because we've got the Ouija board and the Satanic Bible just behind you.
Yeah. Well, it's
dun,
fitting.
dun, dun. Towards the beginning, when he mentioned the dodgeball guy, he wants to leave the carnival atmosphere because he's too depressed about his breakup and all that. Some guy, I think it must be Dion Richmond, asked him, what do you want to do then? He probably mentions first he wants to go back to his room or something like this, and someone says along the line that our room smells like sweaty balls and it's disgusting. And that one stuck in my head, and I thought, yeah, that is a pretty disgusting thing for a room to smell of. It might surprise you to know that American Psycho 2 was directed by the one and only Morgan Freeman.
That does surprise me to know.
Morgan J. Freeman. It's a fake Morgan Freeman.
You idiot.
But it is, it came up, Morgan Freeman, director, and then within a split second I noticed a J. I was really disappointed. I thought Morgan Freeman had directed American Psycho 2 for a split second of
That
my
wouldn't
life.
be the kind of film I would envision him directing.
Now, I can't dissociate him from American Psycho 2. He's just in the director's chair every time I think about certain scenes in this movie.
And on that note,
He's got the commanding voice.
We'll leave you with
to
that
direct.
thought. What would a horror comedy directed by Morgan Freeman look like?
But if you don't want to check out a movie called American Psycho 2, which is directed by someone called Morgan J. Freeman, then I don't know what's wrong with you.